one.
Oh, everybody. We are bringing Screen Source to you, and it is the moment you've all been waiting for. We just got out of the theater after watching Joker, and we've got something to say.
Yes, yeah. So it just dropped today. It's Thursday night, October 4th.
Yep.
This video comes out October 5th, so it's rare that we get to review and everything, all the stars lined up
Yeah.
right on the day of, and you and I were just like, let's go do this.
Yep.
Let's go have some fun.
Yep.
And did we have fun?
I would say we did. We laughed, we cringed, and ultimately we had I would say we had a very good time doing this.
Yeah. Fun is almost a difficult word for this movie.
Fun is such a subjective term.
Sure.
When you're watching a movie about one man's slow, inevitable descent, well, actually, I'd say quite rapid descent into mental illness.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like he has a history of it, which we didn't see a lot of before. So, and just to let you know, too, we'll be spoiling a lot of this movie. So yeah, let's jump right into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've got our I guess protagonist here.
Yeah. What do you call that? I guess you call it a protagonist.
Yeah. So Joaquin Phoenix would be a man who is a clown. His name is Arthur, and he lives with his mother, and he's working just as a freelance clown.
He works for like a clown agency or something.
Yeah, and he's there with other clowns who are doing stuff, and it starts off with him doing that thing where he's stretching his mouth out with his fingers.
Yeah, I think it's the very first scene.
Yeah, and he has the reason for like the incessant laughter is he apparently has a condition.
Yes,
and he has a card that he gives people to read that apparently he's just bursts out in inappropriate laughter, which is weird because you see him doing stuff, and then just all of a sudden he's hooting with this like mirthless laughter.
That's got to be a real condition.
Yeah,
right?
that he simply can't stop.
Yeah,
and this was it definitely got weird.
Yeah, it gets bleak. It's dark.
It's really violent.
Super violent. This is not one you take your kids to.
No.
Please
don't. Yeah, if you it was bloodier than probably any of the Batman movies, right?
Oh yeah.
Cuz there was mass anarchy. There were way more because they talked about how different this was to the rest of the DCEU.
Yeah,
movies.
and I don't think this is canon by any means.
It's not. There was no DC logo.
Right.
When they started it. It said based on characters from DC Comics. And, I mean, there were Batman allusions aplenty in this one.
Yeah, they talked a lot about it. I was wondering if they were going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to try to leave that stuff out.
Yeah.
But they brought it in. Young Batman, we see young Wayne.
Yeah. And it was just, because, I mean, like, the first thing you hear is them just announcing you're listening to, like, GCR. So I'm assuming Gotham City Radio.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
With the old staticky stuff going on because the film, just from what we were able to piece together, takes place in the year 1981, and because it's got some heavy just post 70s style going on there.
Yes, Gotham is under siege by rats.
Super rats
that are going to be beaten over by super cats.
Yeah. So.
According to De Niro's character.
Yeah, these are jokes, mind you. Like there's it's still very, very grounded. Sure. It's the pace is pretty slow and methodical, but it's not it's just things never stop being interesting.
Right. Yeah, every scene has me wondering where it's going. I always kind of knew though that it was more of a character study and less of a plot driven movie prior to going into it. I'm so taken by Joaquin Phoenix's like acting.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
it's incredible.
Yeah, it was cool just because there was a great stillness in his acting, just because there were times where it was just it's just concentrating on dude's face.
Yeah, his face, his body, his mannerisms. I mean, he puts so much into this character.
And not only that, like he went borderline like machinist thin
for
this thing, because like you see him like a few minutes in with his shirt off, and he
Which is
is
funny that it's
skeletal.
Machinist, because it's Batman that played Machinist.
Yep. Yeah.
How
Crazy,
funny.
right?
Yeah.
So
and huge contrast from him bulking up for You Were Never Really Here, which I talk about all the time, was one of my favorite movies in 2017.
yeah.
Where he put on like 50 pounds to like look like a bear, unstoppable train. Also, the movies have very similar tones in terms of focusing on characters with mental health disorders and how that affects what they do in their life, and its bleakness and darkness, and even some of the shots reminded me of it. It's really interesting. This movie took a lot of cues from other movies we were talking about.
Yeah. And it got crazy, and it's just the first, like, because I mean, it starts with violence almost right off the bat.
Yes.
It starts with him. Well, I mean, you see it in the trailers, just
Yeah.
him getting the shit kicked out of him.
Yeah, from some kids.
Yeah, several times. And then, like, when it turns into murder, it becomes murder real quick.
Yeah. Is that when, because there's a point in the movie when he says, "Call me Joker," and I was like, okay,
Right.
maybe that's when he becomes the Joker. But it was much earlier in the film that I was like, I think he's Joker now.
Yeah. And it was, I think it was basically, well, and again, as we are verging into spoiler territory, he is just Arthur Fleck, a man who is struggling with mental illness. They say he's on multiple, like over a half dozen medications.
Right.
And then just his social services get canceled. Well, or rather, the social services department that is providing him with care gets all of its funding cut.
Yeah.
And he's no longer able to get his medication. And
Yeah, the social worker kind of breaks it to him, and I think
Gesundheit.
thank you, sorry. She's obviously peeved, and he seems peeved by it, and but he's like, at this point he's like growing a thicker skin,
Yep.
if you will. His confidence is boosted.
It is, and you can tell there's like that a lot of the disorders are coming into full effect. Just that, yeah, he gets that. He has this confidence. He is less emotional, but at the same time more expressive.
Yeah. He's like almost like watching him come out of his shell.
Yeah,
a little bit.
and then like it comes from him dealing with stuff and being frightened of things and having all of these anxieties and stuff, to just having the expression that you see right there while just murdering the shit out of people.
Right.
Because it was like you see early on the scene where he was kicking the dumpster. And he was just kicking the shit out of that dumpster.
Yeah, I was wondering if there was somebody or something.
Exactly what I was thinking. Just out of nowhere, he is just like pulping somebody behind that thing.
But I don't think he was.
No, he was taking it out on an inanimate object, and it was just like what his violence against inanimate objects is way more expressive than his violence against people. Because you see him like
he hits
hit the telephone booth. Yeah,
telephone booth.
Like really suddenly, and just like and spider webs the glass.
Yeah, I saw that catch you off guard a little bit.
Yeah, and it was just like, oh shit, yeah. And then it's just like out of nowhere, it's like, yeah, he's being assaulted, and then he murders his assailants.
Yeah. You see his violence like grow and grow, and he's given a gun from a coworker, which at some point I was like, was that delusion? Did that actually happen? But
Right.
I think it happened.
And it certainly seems that way.
Yeah.
And it's weird because at the same time, like, dude tried to reach out to him later.
Yeah, and so that does have me like questioning the reality of the film, which is a lot like Memento. Is like, what happened here? Did that actually happen?
Because you get hints throughout it, or in certain cases it outright states that certain events that you see earlier in the movie did not happen.
Right.
They were just an expression of his mental illness, and it looked like everything was cool. Then you see it like very much not being cool out of nowhere.
Yeah, and we were talking about it as we were walking back to the car after the film, where I seemingly felt like probably like almost unsafe. It was like even going into the movies, like, and if you guys haven't heard all of the, I'm straying a little bit too much, but I want to get to that eventually.
Yeah.
But we were discussing where the delusion starts and where it ends in the film, and I feel like it's when he kisses the girl, his neighbor,
Right.
that's where it starts.
Yep, after his first murder.
After his first murder of 3 people. And I think it ends, or at least in the film, it shows it when he goes back to her apartment and she's like, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
"Oh, you're my neighbor. Get out of my house."
Yeah, you have to go. Your name's Arthur, right? And it was just like, oh shit. Like, yeah, it was just like, wait, what? And then you see these moments of everything that had gone on before that, and it was like, wait a minute, because you'll see him. Because he is obviously an aspiring stand-up comic.
Yes.
But you will also just pay attention when you watch this one to every time he evokes laughter from people, because it's just like you'll see. It's very different, and then you can't really be certain what is real and what isn't, because you get this weird sense of almost dissociation watching the movie, because it's tough to be sure what actually is real in the midst of a movie about more than one person, as it turns out, who are suffering from really deep delusional psychosis. The other thing that we were actually going to talk about is speaking of delusion, boy, the screenwriters and the producers just originally they had Martin Scorsese on film, on board for this one, because you see from the color scheme and the time period and stuff that they intended it. I wouldn't say they lifted it directly off the page, but they intended it in many ways to be an homage to Scorsese's movie, The King of Comedy. And if you folks are already familiar with that one, you might not be. It wasn't one of his highest profile, but it was about, it had a lot of very similar themes. So if you get a chance, we've got some Screen Source homework for you. Get a look at Scorsese's 1982 comedy. Well, I guess more thriller crime drama, The King of Comedy, and watch it back to back with Joker if you can.
Ranging anywhere from like the story itself to the costume design you were mentioning.
Yep. Oh yeah. It's really cool the way that works out. Also, you see Robert De Niro go from being the perpetrator to being effectively the victim. Because you see it's so it's all of these go in a very interesting direction. This was a fascinating character study.
Much like that of Taxi Driver.
Yes.
Also De Niro. I think a lot of people are starting to compare this movie to that movie, and because because you see, much like in comic fandom, in this Joker is not necessarily seen as a dangerous psychopath. He's seen, as an emblem at certain points. He's seen as an icon in certain points. He's seen as a vigilante. At the end, that's very clear.
And then, and you see quite clearly at the end, in a weird inversion of the Batman thing, he's also seen as a hero. And it is really strange to see these things happen, because he's the beginning of this he's the beginning of a very interesting movement. If you're seeing the trailers, you'll see people wearing masks that look like that. And, the weird part about it is, how would they know what the mask looked like?
Right.
There didn't really seem to be, because he was looking very different before. But, people were wearing stuff that looked like that. And then ultimately they kind of recognized, obviously, once you see the end of the movie, you'll know where we're going with this, how people knew what he looked like.
Yeah, it makes me...
wow!
It makes me think about, like, how clowns have evolved over time. So this movie, like, it struck some chords with me as somebody who does stand up, as somebody who does improv, and in improv, I've also we've done some workshops in clowning as well, and so I was just like thinking about all those things, and also how like perception of clowns has changed over time. Like with movies like It in the 80s, and then also presently, and then the clown scare a few years ago.
Oh yeah, 2016, when they had like clowns out wandering around with knives and shit.
Yeah, in the forest and schoolyards and threats and all sorts of crazy shit. And it makes me think about what that would have been like in the 80s, but in early 80s in a fake city, which is certainly feels like New York.
Yeah, because I think they said it was like Jersey City
Okay.
where it was filmed. So it was New York and New Jersey was where they got a lot of this. And for some of those, especially with shots of like older neighborhoods, you can kind of tell.
Yeah, and all those shots were gorgeous.
Yeah.
I love the colors. I love the tone.
The atmosphere of late 70s, early 80s going on with this was really, really good.
Yeah.
It was beautifully shot. It was there, and again, just the fact that it goes from quiet and contemplative to just like startling, blood-splattered violence was just insane. Because it's like you see like scissors to the eye.
Yeah,
you know?
that was probably the most violent, I think. I wasn't expecting it.
No, not at all.
Even though he has the scissors in his pocket, and like I just wasn't expecting it to be that violent.
No, and and you see just like this, like poor dude, clearly traumatized by what's happening.
His friend, the small guy.
Yeah, and then it becomes funny. You know, they have these odd little moments because this right here, what you are watching, is also a comedy because they talk about the fact that it is a tragedy, you know, or rather it is a comedy masquerading as a tragedy depending on your point of view.
Interesting.
But
also with the background of the director, his name...
Todd Phillips,
who did the Hangover movies, amongst other ones.
Dude's into black comedies, and this shit is Vanta black.
Yes,
like there is none more black than this comedy. Holy shit, it is. Yeah,
and it certainly is really funny sometimes.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
There are moments because there's awkward comedy, there's cringe comedy in it. There's some shit that is genuinely laugh out loud, and a lot of it is obviously framed in the fact that attitudes about comedy have changed. You know?
And Todd Phillips talks about, that's his name, right?
Yes.
He talks about that in a recent interview where he was describing why he is moving towards movies like this, because his last film was also a drama, I think.
Yeah.
And he was saying like we are not in a time where like my humor and style of comedy of film will hold up.
Right.
Like, this isn't the I don't know if he was defending that choice or saying
woke
that
culture.
Yeah. Or if he was saying I don't like it. I don't know where he landed on it, but I do know that he's saying my stuff is in the time that we're in now, my stuff doesn't fit.
Yeah. Well, and because a lot of it focuses on, especially back in the day, the success of really mean-spirited comedy, which is kind of a framing device for all of this. It was just like seeing somebody who was who wanted to be funny ends up being the butt of a lot of jokes.
Yes.
And then as you get to see, completely out of context from what he said, is no one is laughing now. Not in a everybody's scared, but as an earlier joke that he was making. But you kind of see, a bunch of things get turned around on the guy and then turned all the way back around.
Yeah, which is why he ends up on this late night show, this fake late night show, which does feel like the late night shows from that time period.
Oh, very much so.
I didn't love like De Niro's character.
Right.
It doesn't. I kind of liked his like weird body movements, but everybody was making weird body movements. I like that the Joker was making weird. I love that was a part of his character, the dancing.
Yeah, there was this. It felt like it was almost like he was just. That he didn't completely have control over his body, because he would do things, because you saw like after he killed the guys, he goes into like a public bathroom and just starts dancing and posing and like doing Tai Chi.
It was Tai Chi. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
And it's a lot of weird admixtures of stuff, but dude is just like, it's almost as though for a moment it's like he goes from being a clown to being a marionette. It's like he is
interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting symbolism that they use, and then again also the fact that like he almost directly precipitates the Batman story, because you get to see the Batman story begin during this movie.
Yeah, at the very end of this movie is the beginning of what is essentially Bruce Wayne's life.
Yeah, and yet you get to see him meet Bruce Wayne too, which is such an interesting thing. Like before any of that has anything to do with anything, like it's just in the middle of not great times, but an interesting part of the story.
I think the movie could have potentially done without that But
sure.
I think the director and writers were thinking like, this is still part of this universe. Let's incorporate and integrate that somehow. And I don't know that I have a feeling they won't, but I think this movie would have potential for another DC film.
Yes.
That
absolutely.
could lead into, like, it also puts into perspective age the age between Joker and Bruce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is an interesting one just because he has multiple choice past, multiple choice age, basically. And especially, given the whole revelation that there's more than one Joker. This is definitely an interesting telling of his quote-unquote origin story,
right?
Because it went in some weird directions, but a lot of times what you see for his background was clearly what he wanted to see,
Yes.
And then like after a certain turn that it makes in the movie, you can't be sure how much of it is simply like what is the truth,
yes,
and what is the stories of a dangerous lunatic, because there's another framing device that appears at the very end of the movie that leaves everything else in a lot of doubt.
Yeah, he's speaking with someone that looks like it may have been his original social worker.
Yeah.
Potentially years later. I think she looked a little older.
Yeah. Oh, she absolutely did, because she
Yeah.
went from having black hair to having hair streaked through with gray, whereas he appeared to be untouched by time.
Right.
Which was an interesting way of doing it.
Yeah.
Because there was that. You couldn't really tell what time period that was taking place in. Would it have been the modern day?
I don't know. Yeah, was it 20 years later? Was it 30 years later?
Yeah.
Was it the following week?
Was this Arkham Asylum? One could assume so, because he was certainly because Arkham Asylum makes an appearance in the movie too.
Yeah, is that the place that he was at when he was looking for his childhood?
Yeah,
for his mother's records.
Because it shows it outside. That's
okay,
what it was.
okay.
Yeah, and it was. So
Yeah.
there.
How do you end up in a place like this?
Yeah, it was definitely a love letter to the rest of the Batman story, and it was really neat.
Yeah, yet with no grounding in any of like the original lore of Joker. Although you did say they did take some inspiration from, what was it called, The Killing?
That originally the premise for the movie was going to be based off of Batman: The Killing Joke, which
I never ended up reading or watching.
Yeah, delightful.
Yeah. So there's a lot of controversy behind this movie.
Yep.
But way before the movie had even come out, weeks ahead, critics were talking about the potential blowback or the I think what a lot of people are worried about is the people that would see this movie and would be inspired by the movie.
Yeah, and who would be, well, and especially just because with the themes, particularly at the very end, because it turns into like because it starts at the very beginning just with mentions of like class warfare.
Yes, yes.
And just the like it's very odd because you didn't really see the whole eat the rich thing back then. Nowadays very prevalent attitude about stuff. But it was definitely a people who were considered, like, especially with the whole Thomas Wayne thing, considered to be of lower station than the rich, and just this weird uprising. But then it turns into like villainous anarchy out of nowhere.
It's interesting because I was, when I was thinking of Wayne, it was like, are they trying to represent the president?
Right.
If they're looking, they're talking about this guy who's essentially a serial killer. Or were they talking about mass murders that are happening very frequently now?
Right.
The Joker kind of, I felt like in his stand-up and in his book, it was almost a manifesto of some sort, and and all of the awful things that he had written in it.
Yeah.
Also, I really like that it kept showing porn.
Yeah, he has he has this
creepy
journal, and he's just cut out like little quick, because you don't see it just for more than a blink, but there was just like little bits of just pornography just like taped in there, and we're watching
They're
it
always
was that? Like from the very beginning, it was like, was that porn?
Yeah. They're always like show it just for a second.
Yeah.
But that it looked like a book of like something that like a person of this degree of derangement would have a manifesto for, which is becoming a very popular thing with the amount of mass murders happening.
Yeah.
And so the U.S. military made a public announcement to be safe, essentially.
Yep.
Which is bizarre. You don't see that for films. The U.S. government doesn't make these types of statements.
No, they really don't. And then it was just like, I guess people were worried, particularly after the whole thing, because they said they weren't going to be showing it in Colorado at that one place where dude, shot the place up. Where
during the last Batman,
fuck that guy.
That Batman film.
Yeah. And so it was just like, people are worried that there might be people who were influenced by it or whatever, but. I didn't get the sense of that just because it was a custom tailored narrative, to speak specifically to the mental illness of one human being. Well, or a couple of human beings, to be quite honest with what we saw in this movie. But it was interesting, and it didn't. I wouldn't say that it glorified anything that he was doing because he just kind of fell into iconhood.
Yeah, and I feel like it's a difficult word to use, the glorification of a particular character. I feel like people would say that for like, and this is a weird comparison, but like the anti-heroes of the 2000s, the Don Drapers and the Tony Sopranos, and like, are we glorifying those characters? Are we doing character studies, or like, what's the director trying to show or portray or express? And I don't think my best guess is that the director is Todd Phillips isn't like, we really need to take it. I don't think he's glorifying this person.
Certainly not.
But rather saying, but rather he's saying this is the potential psyche or mindset of somebody that would turn into someone like this.
Yeah, because they've always portrayed, Joker as being this criminal mastermind, and it just seemed like this was a deeply disturbed dude who did not get the care that he needed. And it's funny because it kind of shows relief, or it rather casts it in sharp relief, the story of Batman being billionaire vigilante who's beating the shit out of crazy people.
Right. And so, in a lot of ways, much like Taxi Driver, it shows the realism of this type of person and character, less caricature. But I think it still does keep some of the unrealistic tones. Mostly I'm thinking with that late night character and De Niro's character.
Yeah.
And that I thought it was a little much, but that's okay, I think.
Well, he himself served as a framing device. And also, you can't be sure how much of that actually happened.
Sure.
Right.
Yes. I have a feeling that him killing him on air was something that had actually happened.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Certainly. Yeah.
And that's all that stuff at the end happening, and then Bruce Wayne's parents dying. And then also, you and I were reading up on the fact that De Niro's been in the news for the last couple of days.
Oh yeah. There's a lawsuit going up against Robert De Niro. There's some interesting stuff going on between he and a former employee of his, and sexually charged comments allegedly.
Yeah.
And but there are also counter allegations.
Yeah.
And there's suits.
I think he's being sued for $12 million or something like that.
And apparently his production company is suing the
plaintiff.
Plaintiff as well. And so it's interesting for something like this to come up at the time of a movie like this. But they also said he's got another project in the way, The Irishman, I believe is that.
And he always has projects, and so this thing probably would have inevitably come up, regardless of him having a movie. And I feel like it's almost it doesn't matter whether or not he has a movie being released and these allegations coming out at the same time. I mean,
no. It's just an interesting coda to this entire review.
Yeah, and then as I'm sure you guys have seen too, Joaquin Phoenix choosing to or not to answer certain questions during interviews.
Yeah,
And he's feeling uncomfortable, and like I think that makes sense. I mean, this is an uncomfortable movie with a lot of uncomfortable topics, and he's he is just an actor.
Yeah.
So in that way, I empathize with him, like feeling like not wanting to answer particular questions or what have you. But that isn't to say that these questions aren't valid, though. Like, how do we look at art? Yeah. Is the question.
And how do we properly address mental illness so that people in dire circumstances are not driven into worse circumstances than those under which they currently toil.
Yeah, and so the movie tackles a lot of those topics of classism and mental illness. And I think in like overall, I like how it approached all of it. I liked the character study. I liked Joaquin Phoenix. I liked the story. I mean, I was I think a little bit surprised at how Tony this movie was. Is that a word?
I would say so. There was definite tone set. There were definite tones that were struck in the atmosphere.
Yeah, and super atmospheric. I don't think I thought it was. I don't think I didn't have the impression it was going to be that. It was going to be to that degree that it was.
Yeah. It was well, and the weird part is just how much they hammered home that it was a period piece, because you didn't see that in a lot of Batman fiction anyway. They aren't like, this is the year. It takes place in a very specific year, and it's just kind of crazy how they were doing that. But regardless, I mean, I came away with a definite positive impression of it.
You enjoyed it.
Well, there were plenty of times we were laughing out loud.
Yeah.
And it was just like a lot of times it's oh my God,
that kind of laugh
for what we witnessed. But it was definitely thought provoking. It was thoughtfully paced, and and all in all, it's one of those that I think would probably be good to see a second time.
Yeah,
just to kind of know what you're getting into, to kind of see what's leading up, because there's a lot to unwrap with this movie.
Yeah, and it's saying a lot. There are a lot of topics being tackled, and if you do decide to watch this in theaters, I guess be safe. It is true that there are a lot of crazy people out there, and so the government making or sending out official warnings probably isn't the worst idea. Yeah. I mean, there are actually other countries. I don't know if you've heard this. I think like Sweden and some other, I think like Central or South American companies saying like, be careful in America. Because
I did hear that, where it was like, they are very shooty.
America's super violent, so
so don't be too foreign.
Yeah. which is bizarre, but this is the world we're living in right now.
Yeah. It's a strange one, but it's the world that we've got.
It's the world that we got, but we get Joker out of it.
That's true, and it was definitely a positive cinematic experience, at least in my estimation.
Yes, I agree, and I have a feeling that there's a lot more that could be picked apart about this movie, and there's just so much to it. My recommendation to you, if you watch this review to the end and you're here now, is go watch You Were Never Really Here with Joaquin Phoenix. I've been praising that movie for months on Screen Source here. It hits a very similar tone. I'd even say that I like that movie more. But that's just because Joaquin is just such a powerhouse actor.
Yeah, he knows what he absolutely knows what he's doing.
And I feel like that was a good lead-in for this role that he did for Joker. Definitely go watch Joker. My guess is you're not watching spoiler review without having seen it already, but some people do that.
We'll definitely put that one in the header, and also don't forget when you get a chance to watch Martin Scorsese's The King of Comedy, also starring Robert De Niro.
So those are our recommendations. Also watch the rest of the trailers that we dropped today. What did we drop?
We had Eli,
We
had 1917. Yeah,
yes.
there were a couple that we put out there for you.
Birds of Prey.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, and the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn.
Yes.
Yeah. So
that's the subtitle.
That was the subtitle for
Jeez.
it. Yeah. So we've got a couple good ones, but the thing is, this is Screen Source. You know what kind of quality you've come to expect from everything that we put out. These are not sophomoric efforts, people. we are bringing you the trailer review, the movie review heat.
That's right.
Every time.
Yeah, thanks for going to the movies with me.
Oh, absolutely, buddy.
Yeah.
That was a fun time. We need to do that for more of these.
We should. We definitely should.
Yeah.
Bring some more of our friends and do some more reviews.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's if we have any say, it's not just going to be the twosome here. However, this was actually a lot of fun getting.
It was a lot of fun. Yes. Thanks
and
for doing this.
We hope you've had fun too.
Yeah. Thanks, Fernando. I'm Dylan. Hit that subscribe button, notifications, and we'll see you next time.
Booyah.
Booyah.